Good Thursday morning, July 16th, 2020. I'm Guy McPherson of GuyMcPherson.com, otherwise known as Nature Bats Last, bringing you a few headlines as the stock markets open in the United States. All right. First, I'd like to point out that you have to be a real poser to always do interviews with your own books behind you so that they're plainly visible as if you're trying to advertise. That's something like, Michael Mann would do. I would never do something like that. It makes far more sense to me to have a puppet beside you rather than to be the puppet. Oh, look, there's my little bear puppet. Not to be confused with a squirrel puppet. First headline from the Wall Street Journal: employees feel pressured as bosses order them back to offices during pandemic. Employees feel pressured as bosses order them around, even during a pandemic. This is exactly what we would expect with late-stage capitalism. Bosses ordering their employees to work under any absurd set of conditions. Of course. What is capitalism about? It's about the 1%. It's really about the 0.001%. And so you've been ordered back to work. You have a choice here. You always have a choice. Next headline from CNN Business: American Airlines to warn 25,000 workers of potential furloughs. Almost everybody I used to work with at a major university in the southwestern United States has been put on furlough. Everybody making more than a nominal amount of income for their salary has been furloughed. Up to a month, a year. So you get an extra month off. For a lot of people, that's disastrous from a financial standpoint because they've never learned how to live with a little and have instead come to expect learning to live with a lot and then exceeding that lot when it comes to their expenses. Next headline comes from The Street: Bank of America's profit slides as it braces for loan losses. Well, this is what happens to the banks when the bosses are ordering employees back to work or furloughing the employees. People don't have as much money as they used to, so they aren't going to make their payment on their loans. The big banks who have been running this whole show have got to know this was coming. The big banks are the ones putting those loans out, expecting people to pay with interest. And, well, as it turns out, when times becomes really financially dire for the people who are supposed to be paying those loans back, they're going to pay the loans back. Would you? If you knew it was all going to end tomorrow, would you today make that loan payment? From Reuters: China's economy rebounds after steep slump. Weak demand, U.S. tensions raise risks. And the response? The classic and expected response comes from MarketWatch. Stick to Apple and Microsoft, at least for now, says this fund manager. Keep investing in the stock market, even as you see it's in free fall, even as you see the banks going under because people aren't repaying their loans, even as people are being furloughed, even as the whole house of cards is shaking like a flag in a hurricane. Even then, stick with Apple and Microsoft. Even though, this from Business Insider, Warren Buffett sidelined in fear during market crash, according to Bill Smead. Warren Buffett, here's the lead. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, Buffett's right-hand man, Charlie Munger, were too terrified during the coronavirus crash to make any big moves, Berkshire Hathaway investor Bill Smead says in his second quarter shareholder letter. And here's the quote from Smead. Quote, "It is unlikely they have been more scared by economic circumstances in my lifetime than they were in March through May." End quote. As expected, based on the futures markets, all the leading indexes in the United States stock markets are down at the open. Here we are, 9:35 a.m. Eastern Time. The Dow Jones is down 175. NASDAQ and S&P 500 are following suit. So there you have it. Warren Buffett and his right-hand guy, Charlie Munger, completely paralyzed in fear. But you invest in the big players. You invest in Apple and Microsoft and get back to work. I don't care what the conditions are. That's the message here. Back to work. Or maybe instead you should read a little Stoicism. Maybe instead you should pursue a little bit of Buddhist philosophy, not the religion. Maybe you should pursue a little Hindu philosophy, not the religion. Maybe you should stop showing off with your books over your shoulder and act like a decent human being. Remember, you have a lot of choices. We don't get to determine what happens at the macro scale. We don't get to determine what the big banks do. We don't get to determine what happens with the stock market. But we get to determine what happens in our daily lives. Let's pursue that in the time we have.